Hello and welcome to Workday Live. Please be aware that Workday Lives are recorded. All participants will be placed on mute and our session will commence shortly. Good morning and welcome to Workday Live. This morning we're very lucky to be joined by Gail from Patagonia over on the west coast of the US, who's going to be taking us through Patagonia's journey. As a reminder, Workday Lives are recorded sessions run live from Australia. They feature best practices from world-leading organisations who have achieved significant project success and have delivered fantastic HCM, financials or tech-led projects using Workday. Today's Workday Live features the Patagonia story, and Patagonia has teamed with Workday and Accenture to build a fantastic HCM practice. We're very pleased to partner with Accenture Day 9, who has an unbelievable stable of retail brands across the world. And there's five key themes that have really emerged out of Accenture Day 9's work across the retail world, particularly in regards to HCM. Those key themes are around onboarding, store productivity, internal mobility, talent flight, and customer service. Most of those areas will be covered off in Patagonia's story today. If you have a question for Gail, please type it in the chat box and we will ask those questions towards the end of today's webinar. But for now, it's over to Gail from Patagonia to take us through the Patagonia story.
Thank you. So my name is Gail and I work with Patagonia, and we're going to start with our mission. So for those of you who don't know our brand, we are an outdoor apparel company based in the US. Our core product categories are ski and snowboard, climbing, fly fishing, surfing, trail running, workwear, and yoga, primarily non-motor sports. And our mission is to build the best product, cause no unnecessary harm, and use business to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis. And this statement really is core to the way our company runs its business, and it is integral to every decision that we make, and we really view it through this lens. It informs the way we think about our product design and our sourcing decisions and the factories we partner with, how we operate here at our distribution center, and the work even that our retail stores do within their communities. So a little bit about the company. Our company's roots started in making and selling climbing hardware in 1965, and at the time it was the Chenard Equipment Company. In 1970, it was the largest climbing hardware supplier in the US, and it was during this time that the company made its first big environmental step to stop basically selling pitons, which Yvon Chenard had determined were actually harming the wild places that he loved and harming the mountains, and introduced the concept of clean climbing in its catalog. And also about this time, the company also introduced soft goods into its line and into the catalog. And in 1972, the name Patagonia was established, and this launched the company as it's known today. We're still a privately held company, and we're extremely proud of the environmental work that we're doing, and proud to say that since 1983, which is when we first started our environmental grants program, we've given over $89 million to environmental grassroots organizations. So that's a little bit about our company. Next, we'll look at some of the locations that we're in. So this map provides a detail of where we are. In North America is where we have Workday. We have about 2,000 plus employees, and our workforce within the North America area is spread out fairly evenly between our company headquarters in California and our customer experience and distribution center in Reno, Nevada, and then our retail store locations, which are located all throughout the US, and we have 2 locations in Canada. And then we also have about 100 remote employees within the US area. Globally, We have offices in Latin America and in Europe, Korea, Japan, and Australia. The next slide is going to show our Workday journey. So as you see, we went live with Workday at the beginning of 2015. And when we launched, I would say we launched with a fair bit of functionality. So we were coming from not really having any sort of an HCM system. And so we launched with HCM, onboarding, time tracking, absence, advanced comp, payroll, benefits, all the things that you're seeing there on the slide. A couple months after that, we did launch with recruiting in July of 2015, and then shortly thereafter, we introduced performance and goals, and then also merit and bonus. And it took us about, I don't know, a year and a half to kind of get our legs under us and really understand the potential and the power of Workday. And at that time, we started to reevaluate the system as we had built it and look to make improvements in the setup. And currently we're in the midst of a major review to align our security roles and make sure that we are set up for our upcoming Workday rollout to Japan, to our Japan locations. And they are super excited. They've been asking for Workday actually ever since we launched it in the US. So they're very excited to have it be coming live, hopefully in the spring of 2019. So the case for Workday, why did we choose Workday? Well, there are several reasons. As a company, I guess we were reaching a point where we were growing fairly quickly. And like I said earlier, we didn't really have a true HCM system. In HR, we sort of had this secret world of information that no one had any visibility to, except for those of us who could access the payroll system, which is basically what we had. If anyone, whether it be an employee or a manager or someone calling us for reference, that needed any sort of employee historical data, they would ask the payroll team, and then we would look it up in the system and report back with the information. In addition to sort of needing an HCM system and really growing as a company, we were in versions with our time and attendance system and our payroll system that had become obsolete, and we were actually no longer going to be supported with those versions. So we decided it was time to kind of really look at trying to find a system that was going to work for us and take us forward into the future. Prior to our life before Workday, I would say we were extremely heavy on paper forms, and we used a ton of Excel spreadsheets. Any change to employee data was done on paper, and it required a lot of routing for signatures. So it would maybe start with the manager, then it would go to the manager's manager for approval, and then it would go to HR, and then we would make the change in the system. And this was true for everything. It included, personal information on behalf of the employee, as far as like address changes or marital status changes, and then also related to their work. So job changes and promotions and pay increases, time off requests and benefit enrollments, all of that was all done via paper, turning it into the HR group. And then, of course, after we made the changes in the system, we had to file all the paperwork. So I remember the day we would have just stacks of paper kind of piled up, and every once in a while we would all take turns at filing within the system. And then to add to this, for our retail locations, they filled out the paperwork on their end with the employees. The managers, store managers would do this, and they would actually fax the paperwork to HR, and this is back in the day with faxes. And then in addition to faxing that paperwork, they would also, we required them to send the original hard copies to HR, so they would mail those. So looking back on the process, it was rather ridiculous, and I would say hugely embarrassing at how much paper we used. And, granted, all the forms were necessary, but when we made the decision to invest in an HR system, it was very important to us that we found a solution that did align with our core values and the environmental mission that we had. So Workday has allowed us to be, at this point, almost 100% paperless with HR documents. The business processes that we've built in with the system have kind of replaced the paper forms. We do have review and approval steps that are built into the process flow. And then employees are receiving all of their onboarding documents through Workday, and they have an electronic review of everything, and HR handbook, other policy documents, they can all review it, and then they have an acknowledgement step within the Workday system, so there's no paper floating around anymore. And then actually we're currently in the process of scanning all of our employee hard files right now and loading them into Workday, and we've completed this process for our headquarters down in Ventura and also for our retail division. And we're just starting to get going on the customer experience and Reno distribution center here. So that should take another couple of months, but it's exciting that we're getting to a point where we're actually not going to house hardly any paper files at all. And in addition to going paperless, the benefit for the Workday employee, for the employees, is that they now have visibility to their own information. And they can also self-service on all the items, such as updating their address, changing emergency contacts, they can change their direct deposit forms. All of that is now done within the system. And when we first went live with Workday, I would say one of the things that people loved about the system most was that they could actually have visibility into the organization, and they could look up employees. For us, we did a lot of phone contact meetings, and our retail division would seek support from our corporate office, and they would talk to them on the phone. And one of the things that they loved was now they could go into Workday, look the person up, see their photo, see what department they worked in. And it was just a nice way to connect everybody from disparate locations. In addition to that, the managers also have access to their employee information. They can see when they last promoted somebody or gave somebody a pay increase. They can also see their scheduled time off for their employees. We also have performance within Workday, so they can look at performance documents and development plans. So it's a great visibility for them, whereas before they had zero access to anything. I would say, additionally, the benefit to Workday was that as our business grew in size and sophistication, I think we were getting a lot of requests and pressure from our leadership to start reporting and providing good metrics on our business. And so they were interested in things like, recruiting metrics, demographic landscape, turnover rates. I think the number of hires, management level hires and promotions. They wanted to know about voluntary terminations, involuntary terminations, term reasons, all of that. And for several years, we were at a scramble. So when we first got the request years ago for that information, we were scrambling to kind of pull it all together. And then we all started within HR kind of keeping Excel spreadsheets of this information. And that's how we tracked it. And so when we were asked every few months to put together that information for, board report or whatever meeting that was going on, we would sort the data, total it, total the columns, and then spit out the information. So now with all that information in living in Workday, it's really allowed us to focus our energy on analyzing the data rather than trying to just compile the data. So that's been a huge plus for us. I would say additionally, integrations is another gain. We saw an upside with the ability to integrate to other vendor systems. Currently, we have 15 or so integrations which regularly run and send data, which previously either A, there was no integration at all, and we weren't using outside vendors for things like performance or other types of functionality. Or it was something where our HR folks would need to go into the system itself. So whether it be our benefits provider, they would need to go into that system and enroll the employees on that side. So they were really doing dual work into separate systems. So we no longer have that issue where we can just send the information over in a daily feed. And I would say another plus to Workday, one of the benefits after going live, is that Workday is constantly innovating and delivering new functionality, really in response to customer feedback. So I think when we started with Workday, they were very good about asking us, how are things going in Workday? What things could we improve on? And we were able to provide that feedback. And they also gather information through community, which is another forum for Workday users. But so they're constantly rolling out enhancements. Every 6 months, they have major enhancements or features that they roll out, and then continually making improvements, or if there are issues that they're finding, that they're able to fix those. Whereas our prior system with payroll is just sort of a set and forget. We never actually changed anything with that system. And as I mentioned earlier, eventually we were getting booted off of the version that we were on because it was no longer supported. I would say a couple of the recent enhancements that we were able to roll out this past year is something called a request framework, which allows our employees to actually make requests through Workday. And for our company, we provide pay advances to our employees. And so it's something that before was a paper form that they would turn into HR, and now they can request it through Workday. So that was a major bonus for us. And as well, the ability for the managers to handle their hourly timekeeping responsibilities. I think when we first started with Workday, the functionality was not to the level that we were hoping it would be. And since then, they rolled out something called My Team Time, which really does allow our hourly population to handle their time responsibilities in a much more efficient manner. So the managers have loved that. And then another example is with recruiting, where we do use the recruiting module, and we are launching out offer letters to the applicants, which before was for us kind of a static process. And now we are able to use dynamic offer letters within recruiting module. So the recruiters can create the offer letters. It pulls in the candidate's name, it pulls in the rate of pay, it pulls in the job title and the job description. And so it works really well for us. So those are just a few examples of the things, the new functionality types of things that keep rolling out from Workday. And then lastly, I would say on the benefit side is that Workday, we have something called Workday Community, which is where all Workday users can go to learn about Workday, to gain information, to collaborate with other users on system functionality. I would say prior to Workday, we were very used to having a reference manual. So we always wanted to refer to the book, like, okay, we don't know how to do this, or how do we fix this? And we would go and grab the manual off the shelf, and it would kind of walk us through, or we would call our one customer service rep to get some help. And since going live with Workday, it took us a little bit to get used to community and how to really take advantage of it. But now that we're in it, it's the first place we go. And whenever we have a challenge, or we're looking to configure something specific to our company, we jump on community, we ask the question, and then within minutes you get response from other Workday users to say, hey, this is how we configured it, check this out, or see if this will work for you. So it's a great resource. And I would say that, again, is one of the benefits that we've had after go live with Workday. So the screen that you see here, this kind of explains that all. Okay. Then next is our Workday team. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a snapshot as to kind of where we were as an HR team dealing with Workday prior to go live, and then now since go live. And with our company, because we didn't have an HRIS system, we didn't have an HRIS team. In 2013 is when we really started exploring different systems. And once we decided on Workday, we needed to put together our implementation team. Because we were launching with HCM and benefits and time and absence and payroll, we really needed to have some expertise and background knowledge to address the functional areas when we were going through our discovery and design and testing sessions. So we ended up taking or having our benefits and payroll manager. So she kind of peeled halfway off of her normal responsibilities and joined the implementation team so she could put together all of that information and help in the design. We also had, at the time, our payroll assistant peel off of his responsibilities and really kind of focus on the time and absence portion of it, and then he also assisted with the payroll setup. And then I had peeled off my HR manager role. I was working with our retail division, so I removed myself from that and stepped into working on HCM and sort of leading the project so that we could go live in 2015. At the time, we had 1,200 North American employees within the system, or that we were supporting. And then today, our team looks like we have an actual specific HRIS/Workday team. So we have HRIS manager, and then we have a manager of Workday operations. So the HRIS manager kind of deals with all systems, basically dealing with HR. The manager of the Workday operations manages the team specifically in relation to Workday. And on that team, we have 2 analysts, and then also an HR help desk administrator. And because when we launched, we really wanted to go employee self-service and manager self-service, we determined that we needed to create some sort of a support desk for employees and managers who had questions about Workday. The functional HR areas for our company kind of support our business primarily based on location. And so we figured it would be more efficient to have a centralized place, I guess, to receive questions. So we basically have a ticketing email system where employees can send in email questions, and our HR help desk administrator is sort of our first line of response to that, and can answer general questions or help guide through Workday if they need assistance. And then anything further than that, as far as the more nuanced or detailed or specific questions, those get routed to the appropriate functional expert for help. So that's the system that we've set up here. I think as we go forward in looking at how we're going to include Japan now in the process, that's another thing that we're looking to perhaps set up a service center also based in Japan, so to help with that. And now within Workday, we have about our 2,200 employees there. So we've grown quite a bit. Our team necessarily hasn't grown all that much, but just has become very focused on Workday. So with that, there were a lot of lessons learned. All of these, they're all pretty common sense, I would say, but I think the biggest ones for us are first to challenge the implementation partner to challenge you on design or challenge us on design, which is something that I don't think we did very well. I think when we were going through the discovery and design phase, we really wanted to kind of replicate the processes that we had in place. And so we kind of step by step did that. And I will say it's absolutely not the right way to go. I'd encourage everyone to think about efficiencies and to minimize the number of clicks to get the job done, but also provide sort of confidence that it meets auditing standards. But that's something that we didn't do. The second big thing I would say is to anticipate future needs of the business and design it for scalability. And our lesson learned here is, I think when we designed Workday, we were thinking, yeah, we knew we were going to go global one day, but that really wasn't at the forefront of how we were thinking about it. And looking back now that we are in the middle of the Japan project, is something that I wish we had done a better job of, for sure. And then the third major point I would say is the training and socialization, and not to wait and hold that off till the end. I would consider it all the way going through and really sort of spend some focus and attention on how you're going to socialize Workday and roll out training to the employee workforce. And as you can see, there were other lessons learned. Oh, and the last one. So what your implementation partners tell you about approval steps and notifications is true. So simple is better. And I've heard this from several other companies we've talked to, like, yeah, they always told us not to build in too many steps or approval steps or not to create so many notifications, and everybody does it. And I would say that it's something that we are working to undo a little bit in our current setup. So I would heed that as well. So that's our Patagonia story. I appreciate having the chance to share it with you and to share our Workday experience.
Thank you, Gail. That was a fantastic presentation. There's certainly some really, really interesting points there. I've got a couple of questions that have come through chat. The first one's around, you mentioned there was about 89 million in community givebacks over the years. And the question is around, how does that ethos shape your company culture?
You know, I don't know if I would say it shapes our company culture, but it's a part of who we are. So our environmental mission, in terms of how we inspire, how we get other people to do good in the world regarding the environment, like that's our makeup and that's who we are. The program of the environmental grants giving program kind of came out of that, and it's something that we, I would say it's just one part of the work that we do, but I think it also evokes the spirit of giving and or being able to give of ourselves, whether it be through money, through grant giving, or through working for organizations. You know, we have internships where we actually can go and work for other environmental organizations, and the company will pay our time to do that. So it's just a part of who we are.
Great. So on that note, there's two additional questions that are kind of related to community and core values. Let me get the community one done first, which you mentioned that you moved to no reference model manuals and you work directly into the Workday community. Have you got some thoughts on how that community can help our organisations in Australia and New Zealand?
As far as for Workday?
Yeah, the Workday community.
Yeah, I mean, it's global. So, and I apologize, my view of it, like the questions and the things that I look up are typically US based, but I do know when I'm out there, like I see other countries that are asking questions, you know, related to specific, it might be specific processes or things that legally need to be done in those countries. So it feels like, and maybe you could speak more to it as well, just in terms of, I'm assuming there would be a Workday community area like we have in the US, regional groups that we can belong to and meet with, whether it be by phone or by in person, where we can get together and talk about Workday and talk about the challenges that we're having or how, you know, how we're doing this. So I would imagine in Australia, New Zealand, there would be similar regional types of groups.
Yeah, it's very much the same. So the community provides feedback based on questions that are raised by other Workday customers. It's just a fantastic resource. As you've mentioned, you get a lot of value out of it from the US and US specific needs. We have the same sort of thing down here in this part of the world. So that's great that you guys use that quite significantly. The second question that followed on around culture or vision for the business was, you mentioned that you were looking for partners who shared your core values or matched your core values. And obviously you've taken Workday and Accenture Day 9. How important was that for Patagonia?
It's important. It plays a part in terms of we are, I mean, obviously it's got to make business sense and it's got to also tie in with our core values. When we first started looking at both, I think, implementation partners and a system, it was something that we had hired a consultant to help us with, who would go through and I think do some of the initial sort of interviewing in terms of what that company was about, how it treated its employees, you know, was it concerned with fair labor practice and all the things that were important to us. So it does actually form a lot of the relationships that we have with our vendors across the board.
Excellent, thank you. And this would be the last question, and it's one that we get on nearly every single one of the Workday Lives. And it's around, you know, these projects involve a lot of change for a lot of people. And one of the examples you gave was like 100% paperless now. So the question is around, how was the change management handled, both for all of the employees across the business, and you've grown quite significantly, and also to those within your newly created HRS team. Two specific questions is one on change management and two on the training side. So hoping you can elaborate on that a little.
Yeah, so on the change management side, I think we started with a lot of, and to be honest, I'm going to say I don't know if we did it all that well, but we started with communication to let people know that we were considering a change in system. And then once we decided, we started to have communication surrounding the fact that, you know, and again, the experience for them was they came from no system at all to Workday. So they were excited about the ability to have visibility into their information, the managers being able to do things for their employees and the employees being able to do things for themselves. So in concept, a lot of excitement around it. And we did a lot of talking about it. I think we did some demo, you know, like once we started to, for ourselves, become familiar with Workday and be able to get to a place to share demonstrations and have group meetings and sessions about it, we would start to do that. We targeted kind of power users first, and then knowing that managers were going to be in there doing work that they had never really done before, then we rolled out to the managers, and we would either A, invite them to working sessions, or B, schedule it. For our remote folks, like our retail folks, we were doing a lot of web types of sessions to introduce them to it. I would say that the training portion is something that we are still trying to figure out because, you know, honestly, as that one slide showed, user adoption is going to vary. So, you know, in our heads, we were thinking, wow, they're going to love it, they're going to adopt it, and everyone's going to be in there using it. And the reality is, you know, there are people who are less or more technically savvy. And so our approach is to kind of target and meet them where they are in order to advance them within their skill set for Workday. So we haven't quite cracked the nut of how to get everyone to the level that we would like them to be honest, but training and development is always, again, core to us as well. So we have our HR admin person that is fielding the incoming. He used to be our trainer for our IT department, so we're going to be utilizing him to more fully develop the training program for Workday users.
Excellent, thank you. Some really good tips in there. Gail, personally, I would really like to extend my thanks to you for taking some time out of your afternoon to give us a live story of Patagonia over here in Australia and New Zealand in the morning. So thank you very much. I'm sure our audience got some really good tips and tricks and some very good takeaways from your presentation. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
If we go back and we look at Gail's presentation and the Patagonia journey, it really does echo why a lot of retailers are in the market to transform their HRS and HCM functions. And really it's about those 5 key things we talked about at the start of the webinar, combined with the scalability, the efficiency, the agility, the visibility and the cost savings that you get from modern IT and cloud-based systems. And then if you look at our friends at Accenture Day 9, the real capabilities that they have across their Workday practice is a lot of that industry knowledge from a very, very solid stable of retail brands, household brands across the world. Their Workday deployments and their Workday consultants are top class. And they also have the ability to deliver add-ons and consulting services with the proven tools and assets. So for now, I'd like to say good morning to everybody. Thank Gail again, and look forward to seeing you on the next Workday Live in the future. Thank you very much.